Hello there, and welcome to More Movies Podcast, number 54.
We have a 54% chance of wiping out the entire USSR before they get their missiles airborne.
Welcome, film fans, movie maniacs, cinema super nerds. This is the podcast where we like to talk about all things film. My name's Greg Fisher. His name is David Roberts. How are you doing this week, Dave?
I'm doing pretty well, sir. Pretty well. How are you?
I'm not too bad myself. It's good to see you. It's been
Excellent.
a little while since we've been on air. So
It has.
I thought, we got to the end of the year. It's the end of 2022. Everybody's packing up. They're down in tools, getting ready for the big old celebration at the end of the year. So it's a good point for us to sort of say, what have we been watching for the last 6 months? Because we haven't really been on since when? July?
July, yeah,
I
a
think
long
the
time
last
ago.
movie we watched and talked about was Elvis. So we got some catching up to do, is what I'm saying, my friends. Thanks very much if you're joining us
Absolutely.
on YouTube. If you're here for the first time, welcome in. If you're an old face, great to see you. If you're just listening in on the audio, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us on
Welcome.
audio platform. So yeah, Dave, let's get into it. Let's get on with it. Let's get on with the rest of 2022. The worst, the best, the rest. It's more movies. So yeah, there's lots of films we've watched over the last 6 months. If you follow us on Instagram, in our highlights, you can see what movies we've been watching. We only put films we're watching for the first time, so that'll include new releases, plus older films that we're just seeing for the first time for one reason or another we haven't caught up with until now. So if you click on the highlights reels on our Instagram profiles, you can see what we've been watching from month to month. So Dave and I have been back through the last 6 months since July. Well, 5 months really, isn't it? And we've hand selected 20 films that we're going to be talking about over the next hour or so on the podcast. Some of them we enjoyed, some of them maybe not so much. We'll just pull them apart. We'll see what's in there. Obviously, there's a lot more films we have been watching, but we consider them like older films that were like first-time watches. Go and have a look in there on Instagram if you're interested in what else we've been watching. But we thought we'd stick with films that have pretty much been released within the last year or so. So Dave, kick us off, mate. Let's have the first film. Tell us all about it. What are we going to have? What are we looking at?
Get things off. It's actually the most recent film I watched just the other day, and it's something that I'd been wanting to watch for quite a while, and that's The Phantom of the Open. We reacted to the trailer for this, of course, earlier in the year, and we were really excited about it, and it's one that we're excited about it and then kind of forgot about it, and then finally got a chance to go and see it. It's a classic British comedy, basically, with one of our favourites, Mark Rylance, in the title role. He plays Maurice Flitcroft, and it's a true story about a normal working bloke in the UK, works down the factory, who decides one day he's going to enter the British Open Golf Championships, and the hilarity that kind of ensues from that. It's really great fun. It was one of them, you watch a trailer for a comedy sometimes, don't you? And you go, are the best jokes in the trailer? Is it going to be, you watch the film and then you're like, oh. It's not the case here. It's a really great film. It lives up to kind of what the trailer offered.
Cool.
There's some really funny jokes in there. There's some really great stuff, great performances. Sally Hawkins is in there, and Rhys Ifans and stuff like that. And so it's a nice cast going on, classic kind of British sentimentality. And it's got, some of the feel-good factor in there at the end and stuff. And it is quite funny because at the end they obviously do the photographs of the real Maurice Flitcroft. And you can kind of see
it's a true story.
And it's a true story, and you look at the likeness and you go, yeah, it's actually quite spot on, really.
Cool.
So it's really good fun.
I remember when we watched the trailer for it, we were talking about things like Eddie the Eagle film,
Yes.
And that was actually based in a true story as well, of course. But I didn't realise this one was, so that's an extra layer there of because you watch something like Happy Gilmore, sort of funny golf movie, but
Yeah,
it's completely made up. You know, it's like.
I mean, the Eddie the Eagle film is exactly the kind of comparison here for this, based on a true thing, and I've got a similar thing. Someone who's not very good at it,
an underdog, classic underdog story,
and and it works very well, doesn't it? The underdog story on film. So,
everybody loves an underdog. Surely.
If you don't, you're evil.
Yeah, you're the overdog. But it looks really good. I can't wait to see it as well. I'll probably stick it on over the holidays, catch up on it. Like you said, it was one of those sort of got away from us, and you know, it was released at a funny time of year. This sort of time of year, wasn't it? Last year, so you know, we were waiting for it in the early year, and it just sort of got by us.
Yeah, that's it. It's one I'd recommend over the Christmas kind of period. This is the kind of thing that it'd be great for everyone to sit down and watch. Really, so
good giggle.
It is, yeah. Brilliant.
Thumbs up. All right, that's it. We'll move on from the Phantom of the Open to Top Gun Maverick, which we were both looking forward to this year as well. Obviously, Tom Cruise returning to the role of Pete Maverick Mitchell. This time he's back to train the young kids to do some crazy mission, and it goes from one extreme to the other. For me, it was like... It was everything you wanted from it. It was everything you expected from it as a Top Gun movie and more. And to the point for me personally, and much more, like there were scenes in it, I was just like, oh my God, enough of this. I can't believe they've gone there. But there was other stuff in there that I really did enjoy, and it was good fun. It did what it said on the tin. You know, Tom Cruise, nice to see Val Kilmer get a bit of a role in there. You know, that was quite heartfelt moment. You think, great, Val's back, the Iceman. Other stuff was a little bit cringe, but it's Tom. So. Yeah,
it was. We of course reacted to the trailer again for this one months and months back. We were very excited for it. We finally did get to see it. It's an interesting film, isn't it? I love the original Top Gun. You know, it's not the perfect movie or anything like that, and
God no,
no, but it's really great fun. It's a great piece of its time. It's got that nostalgic factor, and there's something about it, isn't there? But of course, over the last few years, we've seen these terrible sequels to films or remakes and things like that. Top of my head, Coming to America 2 sequel that we covered on the channel, which was terrible. And you know, there's been lots of these things, and obviously people getting sick of them.
Yeah.
And you kind of look at this, and you know, there's an excitement about it, but there's also trepidation of, is this just going to be another one of them? And you go, oh. Yeah. But actually, it really delivered, didn't it? And
it did, but it was to the point where you thought, oh my God, I mean, you expect a certain amount of like craziness and bravado from Tom Cruise, but the first 10 minutes of the film, he's flying this like hypersonic stealth plane faster than, you know, your atoms could actually deal with, and he's you know, going Mach 10 or something, and he ejects. You know, we're at Mach 10. I've got to push it to the limit, and then he ejects, and you think straight away, I thought, he would be eviscerated. He would literally be, his atoms would just be spread into the ether.
There'd be nothing left. Yeah.
You know, when you're starting a movie like that, you know that it can go to anywhere from there. So they did. I think they went a bit too far. You know, but at the same time, it's one of those, well, you asked for it. Yeah. What did you expect? It's Top Gun. This is not bottom gun.
It is completely ridiculous and over the top and unbelievable. Mm. But yeah, as you say, what do you expect? But on the same hand, it's really great fun.
It was fun. Of
all the action, Tom Cruise doing his own stunts, all the physicality.
Flying his own planes, crazy man. Yeah. Crazy man. How he gets the insurance to sign off on it, I don't know. He must be like covered by the church, you know, of...
Church of Scientology.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. You know, we'll cover you.
I think the only thing I didn't, you know... The only bit of the film that really dropped it for me was there's that moment where you know, they find the one remaining plane in the bombed out area in you know, and it started to turn into Mission Impossible, and I was a bit like, this, you just had to go there.
They just happen to have the same plane that he used to fly in the first movie, and it's like, oh, and the asshole at the end saves him. You know, the dipshit that's been like mouthing off the whole way through, and you think, I hope he gets killed. I hope he gets like a missile up the ass and just blows to a million pieces, because he's been a right prick all the way through. And no, he's the one that saves him. He's like the Iceman of it, isn't he? And I just thought, But there we go. We got to see it. It was worth waiting for. It was a good laugh. So there we go. Top Gun Maverick was a thumbs up. It wasn't a thumbs down. It was a thumbs up.
2 very enthusiastic thumbs up. Fine holiday fun.
Okay, moving on to another sequel, and it's one of those that sort of, I mean, they've done quite a few sequels to the original Predator, 1987, Arnold Schwarzenegger and the gang, you know, a classic sci-fi 80s actioner. I think one of the best. One of the ones you can still watch and it hasn't dated that much. You think that still looks great. Could have gone a totally different way where it looked awful. But no, they got it right. It's a great film. But they've had a lot of sequels over the year. You've had the mashup with Aliens as well, Alien versus Predator, etc. They've tried a few times to, I mean, some of them were okay. Some of the films are, I mean, Predator 2 had a bit of a renaissance after this came out, and everyone was like, Predator 2 is goat, man. It's not. It is not. It's awful. And it was awful when it came out. We remember, you know, when it came out, and it was like, oh, compared to the original movie, this really sucks. Yes, you can watch back and say, you know, there's moments of it that's like good laugh. But anyway, Prey came out this year, 2022, and it's almost like a prequel in a sense, because they go back to the, I think, you know, either late 1700s, early 1800s, and we're in America. So it's not the America we know. They haven't quite, you know, completely eviscerated all of the natives and made the country we know today. There's still a native element to there. So, you know, think Revenant, people like, there is Europeans over there, trappers and stuff like that, but there's still a lot of tribes, still a lot of Native Americans, and it's told through their eyes, particularly a young girl in the tribe. And basically, you know the rest. It's a Predator film. There's a Predator come to Earth, but it's a Predator from a couple of 100 years before the one we know from the original film. And they do a really good job there's a couple of tributes in there to all of the Predator films over the years that make you go, I like that. For example, the classic line, if it bleeds, we can kill it.
It bleeds, we can kill it.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was like a great addition to the Predator catalogue. I'd advise it to anyone, especially if you were a fan of that original Predator film or the series as a whole. Then it's got to be held up as, that's worth an hour and a half of anyone's time. Great fun. Advise it.
Yeah, it's one. I remember after you mentioned it and said, "Oh, it's a really great film," and I was, "Oh, what's it about?" And then you said, "Oh, it was a Predator prequel," and I didn't even realise. I think that's the thing that's thrown it because of the title. Yeah,
they kept the font in a sense, even though it was a little bit more, you know, old-fashioned. But it's Prey now rather than Predator. They've just turned it on its head and said, it's Prey. But I didn't realise at first. You know, when I first just seen the word Prey and seen there was like, you know, a couple of the stars, the youngsters in it are like Native Americans. And I thought, well, what's that? Is like a Western or something, some kind of, you know, Last of the Mohicans, things like that. But then realised it's a Predator prequel. Really cool. It's
really interesting kind of concept, isn't it? I think so. I do want to check it out because it sounds really interesting, and you say you were recommending it, and I mean, I love the original Predator.
Oh yeah, that's why I enjoyed this one, because I'm a fan of the original, and it's a good story. It's a story about characters. The main star of it is a girl called Amber Midthunder, and she's just great in it. She's perfect casting. It's like, she's that perfect, you know, really young and full of bravado, but you know, like Luke Skywalker, not quite ready for the trials you're about to go through yet. So there's a sort of learning curve throughout it. And there's that whole side of it, you know, the Native Americans, and they were great warriors, and it's really cool. There's some cool stuff in there. There's some great Easter eggs for the other films, and I can see why Predator 2 had a bit of a renaissance afterwards, because a lot of the kids probably watching it for the first time were like, oh, what are they saying about this certain Easter egg? We've got to go and now see what that's about.
Go and hunt it out.
And it worked. It worked like that. So,
it sounds interesting. It's just, you know, saying it's on par or, you know, close to like the original, you know, rather than the rest, because I always felt like after the original, all the sequels and the AVP and all that, I'd never really enjoyed any of them.
I like the one
away
with,
from itself.
Adrian Brody was in one a few years ago. I think it was called Predators. It was like plural. It wasn't bad, that one. I think they're all on some island or something like this. It's a bit more like, what's that Japanese film, that kind of...
Battle
Royale scenario or Hunger Games, something like that, where it's like... But that was quite cool. But this one's definitely my favourite of all the sequels or prequels, whatever. The Predator's a bit different as well. He's a little bit like old... Well, not old-fashioned, but he's got more sort of organic, where he always had the metal helmet and stuff like that. Well, this time it's more like a skull, like a warrior might wear some sort of crazy animal skull of a kill that they've... So there's that kind of thing about it that it's kind of good. I enjoyed it anyway. I'd watch it again, put it that way. I'd watch it again and go back for more.
Interesting. Recommended.
Cool. Yeah, that's a thumbs up for that one, for sure.
Yeah, so that brings us on to the next film, The Forgiven, which came out earlier in the year. Really interesting film, this. Didn't get the greatest of reviews, but I watched it and quite enjoyed it. It's Ray Fiennes and Jessica Chastain in the film, and it's based on a book. It's basically... They're a married couple, but they're obviously going through stuff. They're not getting on very well. They're travelling to Morocco. They're travelling to a friend's wedding out in the middle of nowhere, basically. And them and their friends and all of them, they're very rich. They've got the money. They've hired out this building. They've hired the locals as servants, basically, to prepare all the food and look after the place and all this. So it's all very extravagant, what's going on. Anyway, on the way, one thing to remember is Ray Fiennes' character is a bit of an alcoholic and has got his demons. He's been drinking. They're driving through the desert and they accidentally hit and kill a young boy.
Oh, jeez.
On the way to this party, and they kind of bit of a crisis happens. They end up going to the party, and bringing the boy's body with them.
Yeah.
And kind of they get there, and their friends are like, "Oh well, we'll take it inside, and we'll work out what to do with it," kind of thing. And then they kind of carry on with the party whilst the servants deal with the body and put it outwards. And it all turns out it is, one of the servants has worked out whose boy it is, the father of the boy, kind of thing.
Yeah, recognises him.
Yeah, and while this party is going on, kind of thing, and then eventually the boy's father does turn up at the compound that they're staying at, and his insistence is that he accompanies him to the village where they come from to bury the son. Ray Fiennes' character
accompanies him
in a kind of show of sorrow, kind of thing, and all part of their traditions, supposedly. He thought he could just pay him off. That was going to be the
pay him off.
Basically just go, "Oh, sorry about that. Here's a few grand, and off you go," kind of thing. And
sorry, I killed your son. Here's a few grand.
And then obviously this then takes two different journeys. We got what's happening at the party, which is still going on, and his wife's there and all that. And that's a whole thread. And then we're following Rafe's character as well as all that goes on, and that becomes a whole thing. And then a whole load of things start to unfold then.
All right.
Really interesting, I thought, and it's been given some criticism, but one of the things is obviously pretty much all the characters are completely unlikable. They're not nice people. There's problems with them all, and I think that's probably lent into why it's not been reviewed so well, in my opinion. But I think that is exactly the point the film is making. The way these people are acting,
entitled,
the entitlement, the way the story unfolds. But there's some really interesting points about exploring the philosophical elements of the main character, and what he is going through, and the way things change for him throughout the film. And I thought it was very interesting, and I think it's one that people should have a watch of and evaluate for themselves, really.
Well, I'd like to watch it just from what you've told me about it there. I like Ralph Fiennes. I like Jessica Chastain. It sounds, like it, explores some really interesting ideas. It's an original setup. We don't get much stuff that's, you filmed out in the desert like that and so isolated, and you got these kind of like North African traditions and tribes and stuff. It sounds good, man. I'd watch it.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's a different element, different location to shoot these things, and I do love stuff that's shot in kind of that North Africa thing when they do it. It's more of an old thing, from the 50s, 60s kind of thing, and you think back to things like Casablanca and things like that, really.
Well, it made me think of The Constant Gardener. Do you remember that with Ralph Fiennes?
Yes, and really great film.
Rachel Weisz. It was a great film. I'd definitely watch The Forgiven. Definitely, yeah. I'd give it a go.
It's a thumbs up.
It's another thumbs up, which is great. So on to another that you have seen, I have not yet, is Jordan Peele's Nope.
Yes. Now, interesting film.
I want to see it, so no spoilers.
Yes. Without spoiling the film, because still people that haven't seen it, I do know, and it's one of the big releases of the year, really. Now, we all know Jordan Peele. Of course, he started with Get Out, which I think most people have seen and loved. Critically reviewed very well. We both think it's a very good film. He then did Us, which I haven't seen, but you have seen, and you reviewed it on our website, so you can go and check the article. We'll leave a link in the description below for that. And now his latest is Nope, which is probably his biggest film in terms of budget, blockbuster, scale. It is quite something else. Quite a cast as well. Daniel Kaluuya's back, who of course was in Get Out. He's got Stephen Yeun in it, Keith David. It's quite a big cast of people you'll know. And you'll probably know from the trailers and stuff. It's basically about there's an unidentified object in the sky. Basically, is the general gist of what's happening. Now, the film has so many great elements and so many interesting threads that it writes. And the concept behind it is a very interesting story. And the cast is all brilliant. I have two problems with the film. One, it does not thread together very well. It jumps between scenes and the way things tie together for me is a little disjointed. It gets a bit lost in itself. And my second problem is being such a fan of something like Twilight Zone. And of course, Jordan Peele was behind the reboot of the new Twilight Zone. When you're doing when you're dealing with smaller budgets and smaller productions, I think it benefits because you can describe something so magnificent but never show, and it's all dealt with in your head. And when you keep something a bit less fracked, I always think it's a bit better than anything you could ever pull up on screen, no matter how many millions of pounds you throw at it. And I think the problem here is because he's got the budget and the possibility of making such a big blockbuster film, for me, it becomes too big. And what you know, the menace that is kind of described early on, that you then, when you finally see it, for me was a disappointment. It was like, is that it? You know, and I think that for me hurts it. You know, I think people have had other interpretations of it about the film being a criticism of the blockbuster genre and all these different things. I didn't buy that myself. To me, it was just trying to be something big, and I was like, actually, if you didn't show me that, if you rein this in a little bit, if you were a little bit more contained, a bit more like something like Get Out, I think it would have been better.
Well, that's funny because I felt a bit like that about Us. If you, like I say, we'll put my review for it down in the comments. You can find it there, or you can find it on our website if you're listening in. Just go to moremovies.co.uk in the review section. It'll be in there. But I found it got just that bit too ambitious at the end, and it didn't need to. Yes, the money was there to do it, and it was well portrayed on screen, but it just, the story, like you just said, needed, less is more.
Yeah.
And I felt like that with Us, so it'll be interesting to see what's happened here with this one. I'm still love him as a filmmaker, so I am still hyped for watching it, because I know there'll be a lot of great stuff in there. But it reminded me a little bit, because earlier in the year we were talking about The Northman,
yeah,
and I felt the same with that. Robert Eggers, a great film director, but it just more budget, more thrown at it, but it didn't equate to a better film. In fact, the opposite. It was a little bit like you say, structural problems, a bit unwieldy, and with these kind of storytellers, less is more. We like you said, you want to use your own imagination for some of it. And it's often the case with these sci-fi films. You get to the alien at the end and you're just like, oh.
Yeah, and I think it made me think, really, because you think, okay, the era of the blockbuster was the 80s. And you think someone like Spielberg, you think even though he had the money and the production to do it, he didn't show us things and didn't go too far.
Well, he did. He did show us things. E.T. There's a whole movie about an alien.
But not to the extent that you see in something like this, where, it's so spectacular. It's a little bit more restrained.
Well, what about Close Encounters?
The Close Encounters is the one. The Close Encounters is the one time, though, that he kind of did go back and put all that interiors in and all that, and then changed his mind later on and went, no, that's the wrong thing to do.
Okay.
So even he learned his lesson on that one. What I mean is, like, there's a restraint there that the filmmakers need to learn.
Yeah.
George Lucas could have learned it on the prequels, maybe, but it's learn restraint, learn to hold back. You don't, just because you've got millions and billions of dollars,
don't have to spend them all.
No, exactly.
Fair enough. Yeah, I've got to catch up with it. Wise words by the sounds of it. So yeah, Nope is what are you gonna do? Caesar, thumbs up, thumbs down,
middle. Check it out. But
so you're veering on thumbs up more than a thumbs down, but it's middle ground. Okay, fair enough. Okay, next film on the list we've got is another sequel that is possibly not quite as good as some of the stuff that's come before it. It's had a lot of criticism also for one reason or another. It is Thor: Love and Thunder, directed by Taika Waititi. He, of course, did the last Thor movie, Ragnarok, which everybody loved, and rightly so. I mean, the first Thor film, if you ask me, it wasn't great. The second installment wasn't great either. And, Thor's getting to this point where he's going, but the character had a bit of a renaissance. He made him more fun when he's involvement with the Avengers and stuff. That's where Thor really found his sort of audience, where it was like, all right, he's a fun character. He's a legend. We're going to have him. Then Taika Waititi made Ragnarok, and that is a very funny film. Even if you hate the superhero genre, if you were forced to watch that film, like, Clockwork Orange style and tied to a chair with eyes, then you might just have a few good laughs here and there throughout that film. It was pretty good. So when, Thor: Love and Thunder, people are waiting for it. It's like, it's Taika again. They released a trailer for that. We reacted to it. It was very colourful. Lots of, like you said, loads of budget, loads of fireworks going off, and you think, wow, it looks great. There seems like a few laughs in there. Why not? For some reason or another, this film fell flat on its face. It didn't do very good box office compared to what they thought it might. And it kind of just came and went. It was like people weren't sold on it. Even the hardcore Marvels fans were kind of knocking it a bit. I personally thought it was all right. It wasn't as great as Ragnarok, no, but it wasn't that bad. And if you're invested in the story, I think it's okay. It's like, you know, if you're watching a more sort of longer format series, you know, on Netflix series or something where there's 20 odd episodes or whatever, you know, you some episodes are better than the others. And that's one of the problems with all these comic book movies is some of the additions are better than others. Yeah. Is it as bad as the early Thor films? No, it's much better. It's lots more fun. You've still got Chris Pratt and all the Guardians of the Galaxy having a bit of banter with Thor. You've got Natalie Portman comes back into it, and she is from those earlier films, so they bring her character back. And, you know, she's got something wrong with her. She's got some sort of terminal illness. But at the same time, she finds that she's, you know, because of exposure to some of the stuff that they've come across in earlier films, you know, has had some effect on it. But it's also given her some sort of superpowers as well. So there's an element of that to it. And it's all about, you know, there's a god that hunts gods. He's like the god killer. And Thor's a god, thunder, whatever. So there's all the gods in there as well. So you got cameos from people like Russell Crowe, which was a good fun. He was in there as Zeus or someone like that, you know, one of the Greek gods. And you got your friend out of Ted Lasso, you know, the guy who plays Roy Kent.
Oh, yes. Brilliant.
He's in there as one of the gods. So, you know, you got little cameos like that in there that are good fun. Not a terrible movie. Does what it says on the tin in terms of being a Marvel movie. So there's lots of big set pieces and fighting. And, you know, it's all about Thor trying to sort of... it's more about her character and what she goes through. And Thor's kind of just like a sort of conduit through which to tell the story. But that's what happens in a lot of these comic book formats anyway. You know, often is the case. You can only tell so many stories about Superman before you have to start bringing other characters in and tell the story through them. And that's kind of what's happened here with this one. Wasn't awful. Like you said, it's a bit middle area really with the thumbs. But again, I would err on the side of thumbs up. I didn't find it too bad. I quite enjoyed it. Christian Bale is the bad guy. He gives quite a good performance, as I think you described him as Casper, friendly ghost, when we did the reaction to the trailer. But it was okay. It was all right. It wasn't all that bad.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've not watched any of the 4 films yet. I still need to go back and watch Ragnarok because that's the one
to see. Yeah, it's fun. Jeff Goldblum in it, really funny. But I like Taika Waititi, and I don't think he did a bad job here. We both enjoy his films, whether it's something more independent, and you know, story based in reality, or whether it's something like this. He's gone to show he's a great director. He can certainly put a good film together.
It's what surprised me really, that because the trailer looked quite fun.
It is,
you know, and everyone said the last one was quite good. And then knowing Taika Waititi, you know, good track record, you know, and so when I saw like some of the tweets around the time it was coming out, I was a little bit like, really?
Well, I just didn't think it was as bad as all that, because people did react badly to it. And by the time I seen it, which wasn't straight away, I thought, you know, this isn't that bad. It's not the greatest film ever. I mean, that's why people were pleasantly surprised with Ragnarok, because it was such a good little film. It was like, oh, Thor, this is great. Whereas this is more like, oh, okay. But I thought it was cool.
I think really, isn't it, Marvel's true problem at the moment, because we've seen quite a few of their films in the last 12 months get a lot of criticism, and it is the oversaturation thing. I mean, and it's getting to a boiling point now. I think we always said, you know, over the last few years, there's going to come a point where even the hardcore, we love it all, are going, enough now, guys.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bit of a problem for them, you know, coming up.
Well, it'll die a death like they all do eventually. It's like you've gone too far. We've had enough of it, and they won't make any for 20 years, and then
The problem they've got is it's going to happen, and they're committing years ahead, aren't they? They're going, oh, we've got 5 years of films.
Yeah, but look what they did this year with the Batgirl movie. That was all done and dusted, ready to be released, and they decided we're not even going to release it.
Throwing 200 million down the swanny.
So, yeah, that was disgraceful. Life to do that.
Yeah, it is. It's a bit silly.
So not even release it straight to video on demand or something. Yeah, and just have at least that, because as bad as some of these films are, and we've reviewed some of them, like I'm thinking Justice League and stuff like that, which we did not enjoy and were a chore for us to watch. But we both know they've got hardcore fans out there who defend them to the death. Stab us in the throat for having told the world that we didn't like them. But so in other words, what I'm saying is, with the Batgirl thing, they should have released it anyway, because there would have been enough revenue. It would have made its money back, at least from the hardcore fans. But yeah, there we go. Thor, it's a thing. It's okay. They can do better. It could have been a lot worse. I like Taika Waititi. I'll stand by him and say it's a cool movie.
Food for thought.
Yes.
Let me give you some facts and figures, some food for thought.
Okay, another film I've already told you a little bit about was 3,000 Years of Longing. Now, earlier in the year, we reviewed Everything Everywhere All at Once. We both love that movie. This movie, it stars Tilda Swinton, Idris Elba, and it is a story about, basically, it's the genie in the lamp. And she is a academic in the film. Her character is an academic who specializes in story and what stories mean to us, what our own personal stories are, the stories we tell, how our lives can become, a story. And obviously, she's in some place like Egypt, somewhere like that, and she finds this little trinket in this bazaar that she goes to, and, ends up literally being this genie who's played by Idris Elba in her apartment. But the way it's done, it's like that's the setup, but really it's done in such a way and so cleverly portrayed through the filmmaking and through the storytelling itself that it's just a joy to watch. I mean, this is George Miller as well, famous for the Mad Max films, probably more than anything else. A beloved filmmaker who really, I've seen this movie as his love song or love letter to storytelling and to how important stories are to us. And of course, it's about wishing, and all stories about wishing, I think, as it says in the film, are a cautionary tale. So there's that element to it as well. But it goes to places you don't expect it to. The performance of from Swinton and Idris Elba there's great chemistry there, and it works. And it's, even though it's like a larger than life story, they managed to keep it relatable and real. And like I said, you and I really enjoyed Everything Everywhere All at Once. This is a film I'd put close to it on the shelf. It's like it's in the same stack. It's like, they're very different movies, but they're of that same sort of fantastical, magical realism sort of. It's brilliant. Give it a watch. Massive thumbs up for that one on the quiet. 3,000 Years of Longing. I loved it.
Definitely one I want to watch, because I remember seeing the trailer in the year and thinking, I really fancy this. This is really interesting. And then after you mentioned how great it was, I've got to put it on this Christmas.
You'll love it. I know you'll love it. That's why I told you about it straight away. I thought it's up your street. It's got everything, got a bit of everything, and it's really well done. It didn't do amazingly as a film. I mean, I didn't hear much about it. I don't think a lot of people watched it, but this is one of them. If you've had it on your watch list and you've kind of pushed it to the back a bit and thought, watch it, especially if you were a fan of something like Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was a really fucking amazing meta movie, give this one a bash as well. And trust in George Miller. It's like, he's a great, great storyteller, a great filmmaker, and he knows what he's doing. So just trust in him and go on a wonderful journey. Anyone who loves Pan's Labyrinth, anyone who loves anything like that, The Fountain, all of these kind of epic, kind of mystical movies, this was a great one.
That's great. Thanks.
Another one I watched where they've reinvented a older character made famous by Chevy Chase in the 80s. We had Fletch, and then Fletch Lives. was the sequel. Both kind of become cult comedy movies over the years. Fans of Chevy, like myself, I've watched the original Fletch movies I don't know how many times. One of those films when you're watching when you grow up and you quote lines from it, and certain buddies who watched it with you, years later you'll still be doing the lines from Fletch. But quite a large, a bold move here is they got John Hamm in to play the character. So it's like bringing Fletch back after almost 40-year hiatus, 35, 40-year hiatus. And recasting him. Will it work? Well, as a fan of the original two films, I loved it. It's different, it's more modern, it's a different Fletch, but it's still that same character. He's an investigative journalist that gets himself in the middle of usually a real, it's like a murder mystery usually with Fletch, some sort of murderer going on, or some he's basically like all of those other great characters, Columbo and the rest of it. Fletch, cheeky old Fletch. John Hamm's great as the character. He plays in, his own way. And the script is pretty whip smart, quite funny, lots of tittering going on throughout. It doesn't get too convoluted. It's a bloody good laugh is what it is. So yeah, as a Fletch fan, I would like to see more John Hamm Fletch. Confess Fletch is a thumbs up. Do you know Fletch? You ever watched the old ones?
I've seen bits of Fletch. He's one of them. I never actually watched the full film. I love Chevy, like yourself, and the classic films he did, from the 80s. And I've seen clips from it over the years, which have always been funny.
It's very of its time, Some people would look back on that now and just think no. But if we grew up with it. Yeah, exactly.
But I was very surprised when you said, "Oh, it's actually quite good," and
it was a good laugh, yeah,
a good recasting and a good reimagining. So it is one I will check out, and I'll watch the originals as well because I've never actually
worth going back to because you'll enjoy them because you enjoy a bit of Chevy, and that's what they are. They're kind of murder mystery things, and he's just this sort of basically using his investigative powers to get to the bottom of what's going on. But the thing about the Chevy films was they played on this idea that he's a master of disguise. He gets like a bald cap on and he's disguised as this and that became like almost a silly element to it with the Chevy films. And there's none of that with this. They've gone, like they always say, we went back to the character, went back to the books. I think they've done that a bit more, but that works better in a modern context because it would be too goofy to see John Hamm in a bald cap, dressed as a rabbi, trying to pass himself off as something he's not. It's a bit more like it's a bit more modern than that, and that benefits it. It's a good laugh. Any fans of the old Fletch should give Confess Fletch a go. It's not all bad. I'd like to see more John Hamm Fletch. Why not?
Are you Fletcher?
Yes, I am.
Oh! No, I'm not. I always get that wrong.
Okay, so the next film, we both watched this film, which we found quite interesting. It was a little Netflix film called Do Revenge. This was something a little bit different. Wasn't it? It was
funny.
It was funny. It's a teenage kind of a black comedy. It's Camila Mendes and Maya Hawke play the two main characters in it. How would you describe it? It's a revenge film, isn't it?
Yeah, like it says on the tin, Do Revenge. It's all about two high school girls that basically it's like Strangers on a Train in a way. It gets the idea that you do my revenge and I'll do yours, and then no one will know it was us because there's no connection. And that's the original concept of it. But obviously it becomes a bit more intricate than that, and it leads us on different
and convoluted. Yeah,
it's also it's got bits of sort of Heathers about it, or Clueless, or John Hughes isms. It's very much a teenage kind of film. The way it looks, the costumes, the colours are very modern, but I think the spirit behind it has got a bit of that sort of 80s John Hughes-ness about it. It's kind of funny in an irreverent way. And,
yeah, I think the 80s-ness of it reminded me of that Fear Street trilogy they did on Netflix. I think it had that kind of, and of something like Stranger Things. It's definitely leaning into that spiritually. And I think visually, really, it looked a lot like that Sex Education series, which is also Netflix, in terms of it's almost nondescript high school,
generic sort of thing.
Yeah, but obviously looking very what we'd call posh private school across here, you know.
It's trendy, it's Beverly Hills, but it's also a little bit Ivy League as well. It's got a sort of... But for me, the script was so funny.
Oh, I'm sorry, Schoolhouse Rock. Are you dragging my sentence structure right now?
It's bloody funny. And I think it works to a sort of wider audience than the one that might be perceived as being aimed at, because it's got such a good script. It's good performances from Mendes, like you say, and Maya Hawke as well. They're both brilliant in it, but I was laughing all the way through, particularly Camila Mendes. Her character is just so salty.
Yes.
I was just cracking up. There was some really good dialogue in there.
It is. The jokes are very good in it, which surprised me a lot because, as you say, it's not us. It's aiming at, you know. So you'd have thought, would you get it? But it does work. They're funny gags. The characters are funny. The way they kind of set them up. You notice the similarities, obviously, with it. Well, there's a bit of satire going on in there and kind of comments on society because of what happens in the film. It's very relevant to now. So yeah, it was funny and enjoyable, and actually the twist in the film. Yeah,
it was quite a good twist. Yeah,
it got me.
And what's his name as well? Austin Abrams is the kind of like the douchebag, the jerk off in it. But what we've seen him in before, because he was quite funny in this, I thought. But yeah, it's I'd recommend it.
Yeah, so would I. Definitely want to watch.
It's definitely funny.
Are you in therapy? God, no. Why? Cool.
Okay, next film on the list was another bone of contention for a lot of people this year, was Blonde. It obviously stars Ana de Armas as Marilyn Monroe. It's kind of a biopic. As with all biopics, it just chooses certain time frames and elements of her life as an overall picture. So unlike Elvis, where, they crammed as much as they possibly could into a couple and a half hours, this was more sort of like nuanced, a bit more particular in what it chose to show. And it did concentrate on the side of Marilyn Monroe that was showing her basically being abused by her mother as a child, abused by most of the men in her life, to some points where it was like really, oh my God, you're talking like the worst kind of abuse you could imagine, and abused by the industry, and it's quite heavy in terms of what it portrays that she had to go through. And people seem to hate it. It came out and people hated it. They hated the fact that it went to the places it went to and explored the things. It was called exploitative. People said it exploited her memory and her life, and they just didn't like it. The audience did not like this film. It got panned basically critically more than anything, because technically looking at it, it's gorgeous looking. It's really well put together by Andrew Dominik. I mean, he's made some great films over the years. A particular favourite of mine is one of the longest titles ever. I have to take a deep breath just to say The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. But it is a great film. I love that film, and a lot of people love that film because, it's just an amazing, beautiful film. So Blonde had all those elements. It was really nicely put together, well acted. It looked gorgeous, but it was so harrowing, and it went over parts of her life that, I suppose in some senses it took poetic license with, this might have happened there, this could have happened there. It's like, this is based on certain amount of truth, and we've took, liberties with how we're portraying it. And for that reason, I think people hated it. They hated what they wanted to see, I think, was some sort of amazingly powerful celebration of this talented, incredible icon of cinema. And what they got was, a portrayal of somebody being, completely taken advantage of by everybody in her life. And that's why she ended up so, what was such a sad ending is what I'm trying to say. She was drug overdose, she was young, blah, blah, blah. They're trying to say,
It's one I'd been wanting to watch, and before it came out, and then I just didn't get around to it, and then I heard some of the feedback, and it's kind of made me put it off a bit, because I will watch it, but it's like I had to be ready for this. Getting by the sound of it, and it sounds a little disappointing, and it kind of contrasts as well, thinking to something like, I don't know, because we've had a lot of biopics in recent years, but you look at something like Bohemian Rhapsody.
This is more something like Mank. But without, Mank was a little bit more divided. Some people didn't like it, but a lot of people did and thought it was great, and we enjoyed it. It was a good film.
We enjoyed it, yeah.
But it's on that sort of level of it's done in black and white, but it's also done with a certain, there's a dreamlike quality to a lot of it, and it flits back and there's a lot of flashbacks, and it's
But I was thinking as well, it's saying like obviously there's a lot of focus on the negative elements, and I think you contrast that to something like say Bohemian Rhapsody recently, where they take something like that and they kind of take out some of the more sinister elements and break it. It's a more polished, clean version of the story of Freddie Mercury's life, for example, and that. Whereas here, it seems like they've done the complete opposite and gone, oh, let's look at all the negatives and focus on that, and it's more of a dirt tale on it. Really.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it doesn't portray her as a bad person. It just portrays her as a victim. It's not like it's trying to. So I found it, in that sense, where people were not happy with treating her legacy like this way. I think it was more a case of people wanted something like Elvis in a way where it doesn't tell you the true gritty, nitty, horrible picture. It just shows, hey, this was an icon of the 20th century. Let's celebrate it by doing something pizzazz. And I think they were maybe expecting a bit like that with Blonde, but it was more of a, I mean, it would.
With what was the one we watched recently? Respect, the Aretha Franklin biopic that we watched, which was very dark, and there's a lot of focus in that on. Yeah,
even darker than that. This was like this was to the point of it's nasty. It was. I think it's definitely an interesting film in terms of breaking it down and discussing it critically from a film criticism point of view. There's definitely a lot to be gleaned and mined in there. But as for an audience movie about Marilyn Monroe, I can see why people hated it. But it's not a terrible film, I don't think. And I don't think there was sinister intentions on behalf of Andrew Dominic or the filmmakers or anything. I think it was it just hit a sour tone with people, maybe. Don't know. Let us know. Have you seen Blonde? Did you think, it was one way or the other? Let us know in the comments. It'd be great to see what other people thought about it.
What did you think of it yourself?
So next up on a lighter tone was a film. We reacted to a trailer of it way back. We'll leave a link in the description below for that, and we were quite excited about. I went and checked it out. It was Bullet Train, which is a big action film, basically. Action kind of comedy with Brad Pitt as the main character in it. He's kind of a hitman, kind of criminalized spy in a way. Yeah. He's got Sandra Bullock in his ear throughout the film on the earpiece that he or on the phone that he has to kind of keep in touch with. He's got a job to go do to retrieve a briefcase, essentially, that's on a bullet train in Japan. And when he gets onto the train, he's greeted along the way by there's a whole load more people who have been assigned this mission to go and get this briefcase. Brilliant. And hilarity ensues, as you can imagine. the thing I would compare it to would be something like Snatch, or any of those kind of Guy Ritchie kind of movies and that kind of thing. It's very stylized. It's very over the top action. Cutting and getting in and doing all those over the top things. That's all in there, and it's really great. We all love that kind of thing. It's got all the comedy in there, which is really funny. Particularly, there's Aaron Taylor Johnson and Brian Tyree Henry, who play these two British hitmen, I guess, who are called Lemon and Tangerine in the film, and they are the stars of the movie. They are so funny. It's very, very enjoyable for them in it. There's other, Bad Bunny turns up in the film and all these things. There's a whole Japanese samurai element to it. There's lots of flashbacks as well to the previous missions and stuff, and it's tremendous fun. It's very silly and over the top. There's bits of it you go, oh, that's ridiculous, but you're in the context of this silly comedy action movie, so it becomes great fun because of it, and you go, yeah, okay, whatever. And but it's worth checking out if you want to laugh, and sit down, get a beer and watch that.
I love a good train movie. Strangers on a Train, Silver Streak, Train to Busan. What's that? Last Train to Christmas we watched last year. That was brilliant.
That's a great film. Yeah.
So I'll have to give Bullet Train a go. There we go. It's a thumbs up for Bullet Train. Well done, Brad.
Wow. Thank you. This is incredible.
Yeah, next film on the list was Emily the Criminal with Aubrey Plaza. Really good sort of crime drama film. She plays this sort of kind of tough character. She's got a job she doesn't really like in this catering firm, and this guy she works with, he puts her onto this thing where she goes, and it's like one of those scams that these dodgy people in this warehouse, they send you to a certain place with a credit card, which is dodgy as hell, but it's only designed to work once. You buy the most expensive item, like it could be a car or this huge telly or something like that. And you just have to get out the store and get it back to their warehouse before the alarm bells go off, and they give you $250. And it's basically a way for her to get sort of like a bit of spare cash. And she ends up getting more involved with that, basically. That's the setup. That becomes more of a priority in her life than her job catering stuff. She becomes like Emily the Criminal. But it's all about, if you're an Aubrey Plaza fan, you want to watch it because she's just so cool in it. She's just so sort of like, she is this character that, gets exposed to this world that she knows nothing about, which gets quite nasty quite quickly because there's a lot of sort of money on the line and there's some nasty people involved in it. But she sort of, as much as she's sort of scared by it, she kind of rises to the challenge, and she finds this sort of like fierce sort of criminal within her in a way.
Yeah.
But she never becomes like this, like, it's not like Godfather 2 or something where she becomes this like, oh, Michael, what have you done? You're this evil. It doesn't go there, but it's more on the sort of smart side of it. She becomes a smart criminal, how to outwit others. And I really enjoyed it. I couldn't wait to see it, and it didn't disappoint me. So I definitely recommend it. It's a thumbs up for me if you like that sort of crime caper, crime thriller thing.
One to check out.
All right, we'll check it out.
Okay, another one on the list was another remake, and we've seen a lot of horror remakes over recent years. Most notably, maybe the Halloween films have just concluded their latest trilogy of films. We'll talk about that in a minute. We had Scream came back with the old cast and did a bit more. Yeah, we didn't like that very much. So they made another Hellraiser film. Hellraiser, obviously, another 80s horror classic. Clive Barker. I remember the first two films in particular being very good. Then there was a third film came along, and then I think they tried to reboot it, or they did a fourth installment a few years ago, and it didn't launch quite as well. So they've gone back to the drawing board, and they kind of like, it's like a reboot really. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was quite cool. It was, it was what you'd come to expect from a Hellraiser movie. Not bad at all, not a bad effort. Did you ever watch the originals?
I've seen the first, the original Hellraiser, but I've never watched any of the others. It's quite good. The original is quite good.
Yeah. It's an original concept. It's from the mind different. Of Clive Barker. Unlike any of those other ones in the 80s, you had, of course, Freddy Krueger was probably the most famous 80s horror guy, but you still had the ones from the 70s like Michael Myers and stuff like that. Like
Jason,
Jason all the way through. And the Xenomorphs from Hellraiser were another of that cast of characters, that were synonymous with that time. So they've changed them in this one. They're the main Xenomorph Pinhead that people relate to with the Hellraiser series is now, I think, a female character rather than a male character. But, they got the idea of this Pandora's box as well that can take your hand off when you unlock a certain element to it. And that's obviously unlocking dimensions to hell and stuff like that as well, where these creatures come from. But I quite enjoyed it. It was quite cool. For a rehash, for a remake, after the ones we've watched that were terrible, like Scream and like some of the Halloween stuff, this one wasn't so bad at all. I would watch more from it if they did some sequels to this.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded good when you said, "Oh, it's actually quite good." It did pique my interest, to one that I might want to check out because, as you say, after all the ones we've watched, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that was bloody awful,
dog shit. Yeah.
And the Candyman, I wasn't impressed by that. And there's been so many. And I mean, we've had this before. Let's go back. Late 2000s, and they rebooted them all then, and they were all crap. So to finally get one where you go, okay, this is actually quite good. It's a bit of a unique thing, isn't it? So if you want to check out, I think
that was it. That was released on Hulu. It was definitely worth a watch. And if you're a horror fan, and especially if you like the original, it's great. Thumbs up.
That's not bad for a morning's work. I think you'll agree.
Okay, Dave, we're getting towards the end of our list. We've just been talking about the rebooted Hellraiser film. You watched Halloween Ends, which was just mentioned, the third installment of the latest Halloween trilogy. What do you reckon?
Yes, I thought we'd just quickly mention this one. So they rebooted, you can say reboot, it's a reboot and a sequel at the same time, or recall, whatever they bloody call them these days. So they did that back in, 2018? It was a kind of, ignore the other Halloweens. The first Halloween happened. This is the sequel, the second one. So kind of ignore the other timelines, as they say. And it's 20 years after, or whatever, the original Halloween film. And they did this whole film. Kind of the basic comes out, he was in prison. He gets, he's been transferred to a prison, but escapes and da 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 da. Actually, quite a good film. I quite enjoyed it.
Was that Halloween Kills, was it?
No. So it's just Halloween, that was called. I know, just to confuse everyone. Okay. Call it the same name. So that was the first one of this now trilogy. And it was quite good, quite interesting. I thought they grounded the character into some realism, and it was like, what an interesting idea. They've got this concept going on. But they said, it's going to be a trilogy. And then we had the second one, which was Halloween Kills.
That's right.
Which
I remember that one.
We both watched. Which had everybody's favourite...
Anthony Michael Hall
in it. That film basically shat on the philosophy they just set on the first film and turned him into a super fucking being again. And by the end of it, you've got the entire town killing him, and yet somehow he gets up and is still the super villain Michael Myers. And by the end of that, you're going, oh, what a waste of the whole setup. You've just said on a great film. And then finally that leads us to what we've just had with Halloween Ends, the end of the trilogy. So you're kind of hoping, please just make a good ending to it and finish it all off. Well, it was fucking shit.
Oh. Shit sandwich.
It they may as well have not even called it Halloween.
Wow.
Michael Myers probably has about 10 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
It was just atrocious. It was just... it's indescribably bad. There was one scene at the beginning which was mildly interesting. If it was nothing to do with... if it was in another horror film, you'd go, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
But in the context of this, it was like, what's this even about? And by the end of the film, it's just like, this is just stupid.
What a shame.
I know.
What a shame.
Okay, next film on the list is Don't Worry, Darling. I haven't had a chance to see it yet. I still want to see this movie. Again, it's had mixed reactions. There seemed to be more said about the film because of Chris Pine and Harry Styles spitting on one another at the Cannes Film Festival or whatever it was.
Yeah.
There was some craziness going on there. But the film itself, take it away, Dave.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. This is, as you say, there seems to be more coverage about, the spitting incident. There's Shia LaBeouf supposed to be in it, not in it, nonsense going on.
Fired from it. Fired from it,
then saying he wasn't, to Olivia Wilde, and all these different things. But, who cares about any of that, quite frankly? It's, it's not that interesting to, go over the... craziness outside of it, in my opinion. But Olivia Wilde directed film. The last film she'd done her debut directorial film was Booksmart, which we both enjoyed last year, which was a really good film. This is her second film. We've got Florence Pugh and Harry Styles as the main two characters in the couple. Now, to me, the best comparison for this is this is like a Twilight Zone episode. This is you're set in this environment and you something's wrong instinctively, but what is it?
Yeah, and, can't put your finger on it.
And the film is playing out till you find out what that thing is, the conclusion, which to me is very much in that style. They Florence Pugh and Harry Styles' character, they play kind of young, newly married, happy couple. They're in like a 1950s style neighborhood. Although it never says we're in the 1950s or anything like that, and you don't know where we are. They're just in this neighborhood, which kind of turns out it's in the middle of some nondescript. It's away from society in a way, and all the people there, they all work at the same building factory and go off to work every day. And there's like this evangelical leader who owns the company, who's brought everyone there to work at the factory, kind of thing. That's Chris Pine's character. But then things start to happen. Things start to
unravel.
Weird. Yeah. And we go on that journey. And I won't say any more than that because that obviously spoils some elements of it.
Well, it sounds like sort of Stepford Wives meets Westworld kind of scenario going on. Definitely. A little bit Black Mirror, a little bit sort of kooky, spooky.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you enjoy it?
Wides, yeah. I really did enjoy it, and I think there's been a lot of criticism towards it. Saying, no, it doesn't make much sense, or it was a bit crap, or all the different things, People even criticising Harry Styles' performance, which I quite enjoyed. I thought his performance was actually quite good. Florence Pugh was fantastic, as she always is.
She is.
It was shot beautifully. I thought the screenplay was really interesting and tight. I thought what happens was interesting. Wasn't my guess.
That's a good start, isn't it? Because you don't really want to guess it before it happens, because you always feel a bit, I knew it was going to be that. And then when it surprises you, it's better. It's like,
you kind of know it's on a spectrum of certain things, don't you? But you can't, it wasn't what I went with. So, it turned me in that way. But to me, it was very good and very interesting. It was well paced. It kept me going. It wasn't too long. They did what they needed to do with it. There could have been more to it. Yeah. It kind of felt like it ended a little early. and they could have explored some other avenues in there, possibly. But maybe that would require someone a bit more skilled and experienced to do it, if I'm honest. But all in all, it's an enjoyable little tale. And, you know, I think almost if you treat it like, oh, I'm watching an episode of something like The Twilight Zone or something like, or like Black Mirror or something, you know, kind of treat it like that. Very enjoyable, you know.
Cool, that's what I'll do.
Go and check it out.
I'll treat it like I'm slapping on an episode of The Twilight Zone or Black Mirror, and I'll check it out.
I'm about to become a permanent resident of the Twilight Zone.
Okay, I'll just tell you quickly about this one I watched called Speak No Evil. Now, this is a Danish film, I think. It's directed by someone called Christian Taftrup. Particularly nasty horror film where this Danish couple, they've got a little girl and a young couple, you know, in their mid-30s, say. They go on holiday and they meet this Dutch couple and they've got a young boy. But their son seems to be a little bit, I don't know whether he's, you know, he's just quiet. He's like a mute. It's like he's had some sort of trauma and they explain it away, why he's so quiet. But he's roughly the same age as the little girl. And they meet this couple on holiday and they get on all right with them. Everything's cool. And then when they get home, this Dutch couple invite them to Holland, say, come visit us and stay at our house. We got on really well with you. Our little son, he likes your daughter. You know, they play together and that's nice for him. And so they end up, okay, let's do it. Let's drive over there and have a little holiday with these Dutch fuckers. As soon as they get there, these Dutch people just become a nightmare. It's like, oh my God, just in funny ways, in sort of like for example, the Danish woman, she's a vegetarian, and she tells them when they're already on holiday, she tells them she's a vegetarian. And then as soon as they get to Holland, the first meal he's cooking for them is like this beef steak meal or something, and he's insisting that she try it, and she's too polite to not to say no. So she ends up, you know, I never would do that, you know, eating the meat just to be polite. It's like, so it goes on like that, and they get worse and worse, this Dutch couple, and then it gets revealed that there's something much more sinister going on. And that's it. I wouldn't be able to say any more without spoiling it. You know, a lot of these films, to get like that, you know, people go off to somewhere that they kind of should be familiar with or whatever, or not too familiar with, and end up getting into, you know, some sort of nasty scenario. This one, it stays realistic all the way. There's never any cult element to it or mystical element to it or any kind of stuff like that. It's like these people are just like very realistic. It's almost like, if you think of it in a way that you went on a holiday and you met Fred and Rose West and you didn't know who the fuck they were. And then when you got home, they were like, come on over and stay with us here in Gloucester, you know, come and stay in our house. And you just didn't have a clue. You thought, yeah, they were kind of good. And it stays faithful to that kind of track where the ending is just, it's one of the most depressing, nasty, vicious kind of leave you feeling stone cold, horrible at the end of the film than, you know, most other things I've ever seen, to be honest. And it left me feeling like, you know, I like a good horror film, especially one that's done with to a certain extent with realism. Yeah, you think, you know, like we were talking about Get Out earlier, and you know, that guy, it gets a bit far fetched, but you know, that whole thing about hypnotizing them and this kind of thing, it was kind of realistic, and it was like, oh, this is interesting. This is, you know, but this goes to the point where there's a lot of philosophical questions that it drags up that are conversations really as well that would be, you know, quite difficult to have, in the sense that they're quite, you know, it's a very dour subject. It's a very sort of black film. But I can't imagine anyone saying they enjoyed this film. Like, and if they did, they're a sick motherfucker as well, because, you know, anyone who enjoys that kind of conclusion at the end is like, I mean, there's a place for it. I've told you about that film, Come and See. Yeah. Where it is just like, it's a World War II film. It was really grim. There's a lot of sort of stuff in it. You just think, oh my God, this is like, but we're in Lars von Trier sort of territory here without all the silliness. It's kind of just plain old nasty. So, if you like plain old nasty and you just got a black soul, you'll probably love this film. But anyone else going to watch it is just going to feel depressed at the end. So, yeah, as well as it was done, it was well acted, well put together, a very effective film. Can't knock it for any of those reasons, but I just found it left a really nasty taste in your mouth at the end.
So basically, not one to put on after Christmas dinner.
Not one to put on after any dinner.
Bobby, if you don't eat your dinner, I'm going to have to turn off that television.
So, to lighten things up a bit then.
Yeah, definitely. We need to.
The next film I watched was just a quick one to talk about Weird, the Al Yankovic story.
Good old Al Yankovic.
We all love Weird Al. Absolute legend over the years, of course. All his spoof songs of famous hit records. So what this does really is, and it's quite apt really, because we've had over the last 5-6 years or so, we've had quite a lot of music biopics. We had, of course, Queen. We mentioned that earlier, Bohemian Rhapsody. We had the Elton John biopic. We had
Rocket Man.
Rocket Man. There was the David Bowie one, wasn't there, which came out. There's been Elvis, of course, which we covered on the show. There's been quite a lot of them. Some good, some bad, some in the middle. And so I think actually almost like we used to have the spoof movies that used to come out, which, people, often say were terrible. But it always used to be, there's been a load of scary movies. So Scary Movie came out. There's been a load of teen movies. So that teen movie one came out. It was, so it kind of fits in that in terms of this comes along just at the right time. We've had loads of music biopics. We get a spoof music biopic.
A spoof one. A spoof. It's not a spoof, it's a spoof.
Spoof. We get a spoof music biopic about the guy who spoofs music tracks, which is kind of perfect. It kind of starts out, you're thinking, this is, the tale of Weird Al's life. And then you quickly cotton on that, no, this is taking the mick out of itself, and
it's a bit like when we had those music biopics. You had things like Johnny Cash, Walk the Line, and you had Ray, and you had a few others, and then a few years later they brought that Dewey Cox story out, which was basically a spoof of those like old legends of rock and roll sort of biopics. So what you're telling me is this one basically is a spoof of all those sort of Bohemian Rhapsody and the Rocket Man. And
so in a way it is. It is also its own thing. So it is like, this is Weird Al's story. But in a way, you couldn't really, it'd be silly to tell Weird Al's life story in a way, because it's kind of like, that doesn't fit him. So to do it as a spoof fits it, and it's completely absurd.
Is it funny?
It's hilarious.
That's all you need to know, isn't it?
Yeah, there's some really funny stuff in there. Daniel Radcliffe plays him to a T. I'm not the biggest Daniel Radcliffe fan, but he is brilliant in this.
Good. Good to hear.
They hit the notes. They've got the people in there. The way they twist things that actually happened is really great fun. And so go check it out. And of course the actual songs are all in there, and they're brilliant as they always have been. So
yeah, I might check it out just because you said it's so funny. It's,
it is, yeah. It's
good for a laugh. That's all you need.
Can't know him. Laughter is the best medicine.
Okay, next on our list was Amsterdam. I passed me by this. I remember we watched. I think we watched the trailer together when it came out just to see what was going on. I don't think that was one of the videos we did, but we watched it, and just because of the all-star cast,
It's an interesting one, this one, because I remember seeing the trailer in the year. We thought, this looks quite good. I'd say it's Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, John David Washington. Yeah. It's also got Chris Rock in there, Anya Taylor-Joy.
Directed by David O. Russell as well.
Yeah, David O. Russell, Timothy Olyphant's in it. It's a big cast, lots of people. And we saw the trailer. It was all very chaotic and looked like, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on. Rami Malek's in there, Robert De Niro, all these names.
Yeah.
And so we were quite excited for it. And then it came out, and it had been a few weeks, and then we started seeing some of the reviews and people going,
panning it.
Yeah, absolutely hitting on it. And it was massive bomb at the box office. It's lost 97 million, so it's not done well at all.
Not at all.
And I thought, bloody hell, what a disappointment,
Yeah.
I thought, I've got to see it, is it really this bad?
Is it that bad, yeah?
And then I put it on and I was like, what's everyone moaning about? This is actually, it's not great. I could see there's problems with it, but it's a perfectly enjoyable film.
Yeah, I like quite a lot of David O. Russell stuff so far.
Exactly. He's done some great stuff, and all the cast in it are great. They do their part. The story is interesting. There's bits of it I didn't like. That I wouldn't have made certain decisions on it. There's some weird stuff going on there, but the overall package is fine. And I didn't sit at the end going, "Oh, that was crap." I was like, "This is kind of enjoyable." And
it's got Taylor Swift in there, for God's sake.
Yeah, can I have a bit of Tay-Tay?
Yeah,
I found it. I did find it pretty bizarre that the heat it's been given, and I would say to people, go check it out yourself.
Yeah, that's intriguing. I will watch it. I wouldn't have if you hadn't seen it, and just on the strength of what people had said about it, I probably would have avoided it just because you got such negative reactions. But hearing you say that, I'll give it a chance. I'll see what it's all about.
Amsterdam.
So the last film on our list here that I wanted to talk about quickly was Tar, starring Cate Blanchett. Todd Field movie. He's another one that he hasn't done a lot of stuff, but he's well respected for what he has done. Very, very interesting film. It's a character piece. She's not a likable character, she's found guilty of basically grooming different assistants or students to become assistants, for sexual favors and stuff like this. But it's also about a human being who has relationships and does have issues and problems. And there's a lot of interesting stuff in there, a lot of incredible scenes, really, really well put together as a movie. Very, very interesting. 2 hours, almost 2 hours, 40 minutes long. So it's a good, but I found that went by so quick because I was so sort of engrossed in it as a character piece. Cate Blanchett's amazing, fucking amazing in it. Very interesting and original film. And that minor criticism aside, that seemed to come from a bit more of a younger audience, and you had older people maybe defending it a little bit more for what it is. It's not like taking her side as a character. It's just saying, hang on.
Exploring it.
Yeah, let's just explore these ideas. And for that reason alone, I think it's a very brave film. It's a stunner. It's one of note. I'd say for me, it's one of the most sophisticated and classy films that has come out this year. A real sort of grown-ups drama, but with plenty in there for you to sort of get your teeth stuck into and enjoy. It's beautiful looking, great music in it, fantastic cinematography, costumes, locations, everything there is like no expense spared. It's a really very well crafted film. And
one to go and check.
Yeah. It's definitely not my film of the year because we've both decided what is the film of the year. We'll mention in a minute that we've already talked about, but second to that, I would have to put this one up there. I'd say see it just for Cate Blanchett. She's so amazing in it. It's really great.
It's one for my list.
Yeah.
Add it to the list.
So there we go. There's 20 films that we have been watching in the last few months, the second half of the year. Earlier in the year, we did review Elvis. We did review The Northman. We did review The Batman. We did review the film that we thought was the film of the year is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. directed by the Daniels, starring Michelle Yeoh, Ke Kwan, Jamie Lee Curtis, and a few other fantastic performances in there. We both love this movie. I've seen it a couple of times this year, and I have to say, hands down, that's my number one recommendation.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we obviously covered it in depth, and do go check out our episode on it, because I think, you know, we spent some time talking about it. But yeah, I've watched it 3 or 4 times now, and you know, people are obviously giving it lots of praise online. It's well warranted praise. It is not only a great fun movie with its humor and its action and all that, so it's a very accessible movie. It also has so many layers and interesting elements philosophically and historically that it's covering, and it just blows me away what they've managed to achieve with the resources they had. It's truly special film.
Stunning. And as I said earlier, check out that 3,000 Years of Longing if you enjoy that movie, because I think it was within that ballpark of that standard. Really, really good. But there we go. I mean, there's another year behind us, another year. I think this year, for a lot of people, it's been a rough year. We'll be glad to see the back of it and get our teeth stuck into 2023. But, you know, what have you been watching? Have you been watching some of the films that we've mentioned here? What did you think of them? If so, let us know. Did we get it right? Did you think something different than us? Did you agree with us on some points? What about the films we haven't seen, we haven't mentioned? Tell us about what you've enjoyed this year. Let us know in the comments. It'd be great to hear from you, because we're always looking for something good to watch. But yeah, like I say, we go back earlier in the year. We covered Everything Everywhere All at Once. We covered Elvis. We covered Licorice Pizza. There's loads back there that we've talking about for the first 7 months of the year. Dave, where does that leave us? We got some new articles up on the website. Top 5 Alan J. Pakula films. You also did Special Sounds, our top 10 music biopics. We were talking about biopics earlier. That's a good article to check out. Again, we'll link these below. Best place to find us on the internet, whether you're listening, whether you're watching the videos, whether you're reading the articles, is moremovies.co.uk. That's our website. All links, all roads lead to Rome, so all links lead back to the mothership there. You can find us on all the podcast vendors, all the major ones. Come and join us on YouTube. Make sure you've liked here and subscribed. Please join the family here on YouTube. What am I missing, my friend?
Yeah, that's it. Come and join us and follow all the links. And if you enjoy what you're doing and you want to support us, we still have our Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon links down in the description below. So if you fancy buying us a coffee or a cappuccino for doing these shows and doing all our website, you appreciate what we're doing. They're always received very gratefully.
A massive thank you to our regular patrons over there on Patreon. We got Michele, we got Shayne, we got Chris. We want to say thanks very much to you guys for supporting us through this year. I know we haven't been putting out quite as much content in the last few months, but we're back now. We've got some exciting ideas that we were going to put out in 2023. So stick with us for some more movies content headed your way. Dave, fantastic to talk to you and catch up with you before the year's end. There's still plenty of films we're going to be watching over the Christmas period. Now things are winding down for the year. So it's a perfect opportunity to come back in January and talk about more stuff that we've been watching. And until then, I think it's time for us to sign off and say thanks very much for joining us. But that's pretty much all. Anything to leave us with, Dave? Final thoughts?
Just very excited for some of the films I'm going to catch over next month, really, and come back in January and talk all about them. That's what I'm.
And 2023 is looking good in terms. We got Indiana Jones 5 coming. The trailer dropped recently. Ooh, exciting stuff.
Oof. Dun, 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 dun.
Whip cracking. Love it. Okay, take it easy. Thanks very much again for joining us. We're really glad you could. Take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful Christmas and New Year yourselves. And we'll catch you on the flip side in 2023. And until then, as always, keep watching more movies.
That's it for this video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And remember to like, share and subscribe right here on YouTube. For more film reviews and articles, check out our website moremovies.co.uk. And join us on social media at More Movies For You. That's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all across the board. You know the score. If you enjoy what we do, please consider supporting us at buymeacoffee.com or join us on one of our packages on Patreon. The links are in the description down below. And for more filmtastic content, click one of the buttons on screen now.